you can see in games how he kind of creates the upper hand early. He'll throw splitters and counts that you wouldn't think you'd see him. It's been fun watching that. Arguably, he's doing it as good as anyone in the game right now.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Set of Man podcast. We got Ted Lilly here once again, a friend of the show. And Ted, I got to ask you, with you being a Cubs scout, before we jump into some of the Shota stuff, have you found the next Chris Bryant or the next Kerry Wood out there, or what's the scouting looking like for the Cubs these days?
Those are tough bars. Those two players. At this point, it's hard to say. There's definitely some guys that are really tooled up out there. If they're that close, I'm not sure. Obviously, with Paul Skeens entering the draft last year, he would probably be in that category, and coming out of college a little, clearly a little closer. I mean, he was flashing ace kind of big league stuff last year. We'll see how that career develops.
Yeah, awesome, man. Well, hey, reason that we're talking today, we want to talk about Shota, and one of the things that, as I've continued to watch Shota, I just see a lot of flashes of you when you were a Cub. The location of the fastball being a main one of them. What have you seen from Shota? And do you also see a similar pitcher out there when you think about your approach versus what you've seen from Imanaga?
Yeah, it was some similarities there. I would say that Shota has more swing and miss stuff in the arsenal. But I guess, one of the things that I would point to the most is maybe the most obvious, and it's the command of the fastball that he's been able to display with consistency. There's going to be times where he, if he's not commanding the ball quite as well, he's going to give up some homers, but he's also has the ability to mix in multiple pitches. So it's really fun to watch, and I think it's a great reminder to the game and to young pitchers as well that you can go deep into games and keep hitters off balance, and that really does start with the command of the fastball. He's been able to show that he can tie guys up with two strikes and get above the barrel with a four-seamer that he's running up there from 90 to 93. So with the other pitches that he's featuring at any time in the count, it makes the fastball that much more playable.
I think one of the things too that I've noticed with him is he's not afraid to go inside with the fastball, and that was you as well, right? And I think when I look at Shota and I see his ability to locate that fastball, the inside fastball especially just keeps those hitters honest. And I want to show a little bit of video here of both you and Shota hitting some inside fastballs here, and just the fact that it's not exactly the perfect pitches on either side, but you're just both able to miss a barrel. Can you just talk about that ability of what that fastball and being able to throw that fastball inside, what that does and how it does give you the opportunity to miss more barrels?
The command of the body and his timing over the rubber. So he's synced up enough to where he trusts that when he's going inside, he can, for the most part, execute that pitch and get it to the handle. There's going to be times where when you're doing that, you make mistake arm side and you leak it to a right-handed hitter, catches too much plate and they get it airborne. You're definitely susceptible to giving up homers, but it also opens up some margin for error with your other pitches.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I feel like Shota is one of those guys that he can throw a fastball in the middle of the plate and it doesn't get hit, and it again doesn't get barreled up. A lot of professionals are talking about the rising action on the fastball. Have you seen that being the reason that a lot of guys just aren't adjusting so far in the league, that they're not able to barrel up because of that rising action? And also, Was that a thing back when you were pitching, talking about rising action on a fastball?
I mean, there were times, I guess, it would be referred to as rising. I don't think that was thing as much as it just it doesn't lose life in the zone. And so there's a few different factors why, just going back to your point of him getting away with pitches when he does miss middle. One, oftentimes he's pitching ahead in the count.
Yeah.
Two, he does leverage that fastball pretty well, and it is not not a really easy pitch to pick up out of the hand. And then as well, the good big league hitters typically, as an approach, aren't selling out 2-0. They know that they can't completely do that. There will be occasions where guys will, but for the most part, you don't see the best hitters in the game, even in hitters counts, completely selling out. And so, it just makes you so susceptible to secondary. And you can see in games how he kind of creates the upper hand early, and he'll let you know, like he'll throw splitters and counts that you wouldn't think you'd see him. It's been fun watching that, and I think, just going back to, I was making the point earlier about young pitchers watching what pitch making looks like, and arguably he's doing it as good as anyone in the game right now.
Hey, I want to take a quick minute to give Obvious Shirts a shout out and big thank you. Joe Johnson, the founder of Obvious Shirts, is a friend of the channel, and as a thank you, he is giving all of Setup Nation a 15% discount on Obvious Shirts merchandise for the 2024 season. Click on the link in the YouTube description below, or go to obviousshirts.com and use the code TheSetupMan15, no spaces, all lowercase, at checkout. Thanks again to Obvious Shirts, and go Cubs. One of your put away pitches was the curveball, whereas with Shota, it's pretty much, it seems like 85% of the time he's throwing fastball or that splitter. When you look at the way that he uses that splitter, especially sometimes backwards, like you mentioned on a 2-0 count, sometimes he'll throw a splitter there. Do you just marvel at something like that, knowing just how difficult that pitch is to throw and how awkward that grip is?
Yeah. So a lot of that goes back to, I mean, there's trust that he has for a reason, and he's also even comfortable, going 3-0 because he believes that he can execute pitches. So, and a lot of that happens over the rubber. So just in that video, you see how he pauses and collects himself, and he gets the arm up on time. So going even into the secondary, so we talk about fastball command, and it does have to start there. When you're doing that and you're on time, like he is, consistently, it gives you the option to, the opportunity to make adjustments with your secondary stuff when you're off. I think that we've transitioned into a game where, and maybe I'll equate this kind of to where we are as a society a little bit, which is, I want, immediate gratification and results, and,
Sure.
and entertained, with, in the way that we're doing it, which is, power and power with the bat and power with the arm. So, the tendency to want a strikeout now and a homer now, as opposed to, watching a club put together, a couple of hits and move runners on and steal a bag. And so there's still ways to score runs that way. And the same can be said for recording outs. And I think we're reminded when we see a guy like this, pitcher come in like this and really dissect hitters. That's the other thing, with as much information that is out there now on opposing hitters. It gives pitchers the opportunity to attack holes, and when you have someone that can actually execute, those pitches, you're able to take advantage of information. And it's really hard to do that, even if someone, if you have a reliever that's 97 to to 100, and he's got a good split, but he doesn't throw it for strikes very often, and too many of them are uncompetitive, and he's constantly chasing counts. It makes it really difficult to attack a scouting report.
Well, they don't call him the pitching philosopher for no reason, that's for sure. So, he's 5'10". I know you got a couple inches on him there, but is there any real theory behind a guy actually being shorter and having that opportunity to maybe have more command or a better rise on the fastball, just because that release point is at a different angle from a guy versus like a guy like John Lester, who's 6'5"?
I don't believe so. I mean, not necessarily just in that statement. I mean, at times I've heard that, you've heard it be a disadvantage or an advantage. It just depends on, there's so many factors that come into it. It depends on how they utilize their body, and he does very well. Timing, lower half. Just you did a side by side with myself and Shota back in the day, and I really, what jumped out to me was how well he is into his lower half, both posting up, driving off the mound, and after release. He's got a strong lower half that he uses really well. So the delivery is really good. So on top of that, like hopefully we'll see a guy that'll be doing this for a little while. The body overall is involved in the throw really well. So.
And that really comes to our last question, and that is, how does a guy like this sustain? The Cubs don't need him to sustain this level of success. There's no way that he ends up with a under 1 ERA. But man, if the guy is a sub 2.5 ERA type of pitcher all year long, that's an ace. And I'm just wondering what you've seen so far. How does he sustain that, especially given the fact that 90% of the time he's throwing basically just two different pitches?
I do expect him to have success and continue success in the years to come as well. Looking at how he's going about it, he's he's not closing his eyes and heaving it. So even if there is some decrease in velocity, if he stays healthy, I expect him to have success for a while.
I love it. Ted Lilly, you are the man. Thank you so much for coming in here and helping us break down Shota Imanaga. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me on.